First off, I just want to congratulate our hockey team in their big win on Saturday night against Michigan, and then also congratulate our men's soccer team as well with the Big Ten championship with another win in that venue over Michigan, the championship game. So congratulations to them. Coming off a bye week, got a lot of things done. I felt outside of football, recruiting. Got our players away a little bit, so that was a positive for them. But also, turned our attention to Northwestern in this football game. So, last game for our seniors at home. So we've got a number of guys making their last, game here in Spartan Stadium, and I thought that, or the feeling is that they've accomplished a lot of things here in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. 5 of them. 5 years, I guess. They're not been here for 6. Canned food drive is this week. We've done that annually since coming here, and so anybody coming, be appreciated if they brought something for the food drive for the Lansing Mid-Michigan area. And then we turn our attention to Northwestern. Northwestern's a 7-3 football team, 3-3 in the conference. They've had 3 close losses as well in the fourth quarter. When you look at them right now, I think you always look at Northwestern, you look at a well-coached team that puts an emphasis on effort and toughness, and very fast-paced offense using 2 quarterback system with Simeon and Colter. Do a nice job, with the option, the passing game as well, and very exciting offense. I think defensively they pressure, systematic approach. Mike Hankwitz, I've known for a long, long time, was a graduate assistant when Hank was the linebacker coach at Purdue for Jim Young way back in 1981, so there's a little bit of a history there. Be a great challenge for our football team, and when you look at this football game, we need to come motivated. So with that, I'll take some questions, and we'll go from there.
Mark, where do you stand at safety coming off the bye week?
Well, I'm sorry?
Where do you stand at safety coming off the bye week?
Kurtis Drummond will be back. He's been cleared to practice, been practicing since last week. And then I think R.J. Williamson will be back in the mix. He's coming off the ankle, and he's practicing as well. So we should be okay at that position. And then, beyond that, we got to, I think we're healthy.
Can you talk about how important Chris McDonald has been for you? First, on the field, do you feel like he's performing like an all-conference type player? And then off the field, with as many injuries as you guys have had, rotating guys in and ups and downs in terms of leadership, what he's meant to your football team?
Yeah, Chris has been, first of all, a staple on our offensive line this season. He's been the one guy that I think basically has remained intact and has had he's the one guy that's had a consistent start every single game for us on the offensive line. He's done that really throughout the last 3 years. He's an extremely hard worker. He's been very consistent in everything that he's done for the past, 5 years. Been really a role model for us on the field. He's taken a leadership approach with our offensive line really throughout the offseason and during the season. He's a quiet leader. And, I think that as far as an all-conference player, he certainly is a guy that you have to consider based on his performance, systematically. And when you look at an offensive line, so much of the offensive line you have to look at and say, how do they perform as a group? But when you start to look at him individually, I think you can point to it in that direction. But he's been an outstanding contributor for us, and, he's a guy that, to me, is a foxhole guy. You want him with you whenever you have an opportunity to choose up people. You want Chris McDonald with you, and that's a huge compliment from where I sit. The people that you want with you at all times.
Coach, how much of an advantage was it to have a bye week, not just to get your guys healthy, but to prepare for a team like Northwestern that has not only 2 quarterbacks but runs the option? It looks like a full plate to prepare for.
Well, we started working on them last Tuesday and got a little bit, in advance on them in terms of what we've been able to do. So we had them broken down, with the exception of the Michigan game, which again they always do something different. Regardless of who you play, they're going to have something different for you, and you're going to have to adapt. I think that's basically the way the game goes in general across the league. So we had an advantage in that respect, and I think we also healed up, and I think, as like I said last week, it gave us an opportunity to sort of step back away from the game as well, too, which I think we needed to do that, and then refocus and regenerate our enthusiasm really for this week. So we'll be ready to play.
Mark, Deante Arnett moves up as a number 2 on the depth chart. Can you talk a little bit about his progression and where he's at right now? And he's one of those guys that's been talked about quite a bit this year without seeing the field too much.
Yeah, Deante is a guy that needs to continue to grow in our program. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't redshirt him because we had such high expectations and hopes for him at the beginning of the season. The reality is, how many guys can you play? You know, that's the reality. Needs to be a little bit more consistent in terms of knowing what to do, play a little bit better at the point of attack in terms of blocking, catch the ball a little bit more consistently down the field. But he has big playability, and he has a great future here. With that being said, he's got the positive of the whole redshirting, non-redshirting thing is if you're being redshirted, usually you're on the scout team and you're not getting the coaching that you're getting day to day. So he has received that. He's traveled at every game, but the number of plays that he's gotten game time really hasn't come to fruition, I guess, from all parties involved. And I'm sure that he's a little disappointed in that. I'm a little disappointed in it as well. But at the end of the day, you ask for where his attitude is and where his effort is, and it's very, very good. And I think he's going to be a great player for us here. But people have to grow in every venue and every environment they're in, and he's got to do that as well. You just have to assess people and say who's playing the best right now and try and go with those guys consistently.
Mark, could you talk a little bit about guys like Chris Norman and Larry Caper, who maybe haven't seen the field as much as they wanted to this year, but they're senior leaders, and what they've been able to do, at least from the sidelines and on the field? Yeah,
both those guys, Chris Norman and Larry, are very valuable members of this football team, and they've had great careers here. I think right now, Norman's a little hampered with a little hampered injury-wise. Larry hasn't seen the field as much, probably because of Le'Veon Bell's success, but he's had a very, very successful career here, and I'll always remember Larry Caper for his freshman year and what he's been able to do after. I think sometimes it takes a big man to look at things and say, okay, I'm still a part of this football team, I'm still being successful, and I'm still a major contributor in this respect, even though he might not get as much pub or as much ink as maybe he had when he was a true freshman and he was the guy. So that's difficult. But, at any point in time, he can make a play out on that football field, whether it's the Indiana game with a huge touchdown or whether it's another football game. I remember Minnesota last year with a big catch as well. But he's going to be on the field. He's going to be playing for us, and obviously looking for big plays from him. As far as with Chris, I still consider him a co-starter on this football team. He's a team captain, and he's going to be a major contributor in terms of what goes on here in the next 2 games and where we're at in the whole process. But it'll be, those guys, as you get to your last couple games and your bowl opportunity, your senior year, you look at it and, time is precious. And I think for all of our seniors right now, look at where they're at and their expectations and what they want to accomplish and their future. And so many of our players look at what have they done in the past, where are they at in the present, what's their goals and where they're going in the future. And that's tough to look at sometimes as a senior as you go down the end of your senior year. And we've got 2 weeks left that are guaranteed for us. We need to make the best of those, and we need to come out of here 7-5 and go into a bowl game and have that feel-good feeling about this football team.
Mark, aside from recruiting, did you get a chance to sit down and watch any football this weekend, or do you try to get away from it? I'm just wondering how you handle that during the bye week personally.
Well, I think I watched football from 12 till 11. Okay, but in between there, I did some different things and, went out and cleaned up the yard and did some things like that, cleaned up the garage. But I always sort of centered back to that game, and that's sort of what our family does. So whether it's me and my daughter sitting there watching it, or me and my wife, or whoever it is, That's what we did. But I certainly watched the Northwestern Michigan game because that's who we're playing next, and so good football team. Tough end of the game.
Yeah, I was going to say, Coach, I'm sure you probably felt for him after some of the ends you had. You said you were able to get away and look at the team from outside in, reassess. When you look at your team, what did you see in this bye week when you evaluated your team as far as what you can change in these next 2 ball games that you're guaranteed?
I see a football team that plays extremely hard, that gets ready to play every week, that comes with a great motor, and that's a one play away in a number of games. And where that one play is tough to say. Some of it you can control, some of it you're not controlling, some of it you can't control. But that's what I see when I look at our football team. I still assess it and say, well, we should be, could be, would be type of year. But this is where we're at present time, and we have to deal with it. And sometimes, as I've said earlier, sometimes that brings people together and makes you tougher in end result. And that's the approach that we have to take. We have to reevaluate where we're at, where we're going, and get things in line. But when I look at our football team, as far as where I would assess our players, very, very proud of the way our players handle things, because a lot of people couldn't sustain. A lot of people would not be able to sustain after a Michigan game and go and play the way we did at Wisconsin and win at the end. A lot of people wouldn't be able to sustain the following week after an emotional victory or a letdown going into the Michigan game after the Iowa week. So we've come out ready to play every week, and that's a trademark of what we've been able to accomplish here, and we want to continue to be able to do that. So, a lot of you guys write for a living, so how would you see it? You have to assess it, you write about it, but game of inches, I guess. You see it every week. You saw it. Just take your pick on the games. The game is never over, I guess, until it's over. And we're trying to, look at the end game situations and trying to cover every possible end game situation that we can fathom, basically, because they all seem to be occurring across the country, not just here, but across the country.
Curious, when you watch games when you're off, do you second guess coaches like we do?
No, I don't ever do that. No. I actually sit there as a fan a little bit, and then I sit there as a coach somewhat and look at in terms of how it can impact us. If it has no impact direct impact on us, for example, Northwestern, certainly watching Northwestern more than watching Michigan, what they're doing as a coach. But other than that, just watching as a fan.
I happened to be in Ann Arbor Saturday. It looked like that Northwestern offense, they have such a confidence that every time Michigan scored, they felt like they were going to score again. And that makes this opponent unlike a lot of other Big Ten opponents, doesn't it? It's always like a smash mouth, and with Northwestern, you just have to outscore them usually, don't you?
Well, we've had great games with Northwestern throughout the 5 years we've been here. The score may not indicate it at some point. I think last year the score was a little bit, I think it was 31-17 maybe. And so it may seem like it wasn't as close, but it was an extremely close game, 10-3 right before half. Then it opened up, then it closed up, that type of thing. But we've had great games with them. We played them extremely hard. They've played us extremely hard, and I have great respect for how they play the game. They play extremely hard. And I think that if you need to understand that before you play them, that whenever you play Northwestern, you're getting their best shot. There's no question.
Coach, Vendrick Mark is a guy that's kind of emerged for Northwestern. Can you just kind of talk about him and the challenges he presents?
Great punt returner, great kick returner, 2 touchdowns and punt returns this year. Kick return called back against Michigan on a officiating call that I'm sure that they'll be concerned about as well, very concerned about. But I think he's a great guy. He can catch the ball down the field. He can run the ball in the zone play. He can run the ball in the option. He's elusive. He's got a next gear. Size is he's smaller in size, but I think he packs a punch. He runs powerfully. He can break tackles. I think he's a very good running back.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between Colter and Simeon and what each of them sort of possess?
I think Colter creates very effectively. even creates on the run. He may be running the option to my right here and cut back all the way to the left, so you have to be able to play things out the back door as well with him. You have to close down all the running lanes when he drops back to pass. I think Simeon is a guy that obviously throws the ball very effectively, and they don't seem to miss a beat when they come in there, and they want to change things and take it to a different concept in terms of passing the football. He's able to do that very effectively. He also can run with the ball when it's given to him, and he's shown that as well. Which direction they go is they've gone a couple different directions, throughout the season. So it depends on what kind of game plan they have in mind when they come here to play Michigan State. But I think both guys have been successful, and they've sort of leaned on Colter here as of late. But your guess is as good as mine. So.
Everyone knows how dangerous Colter is as a runner and Simeon as a passer, but when you look inside the numbers, Colter completes over 70% of his passes. Is he underrated as a passer?
I think he's got a higher percentage of passes based on where he's throwing the football, probably. And again, he may create on the move a little bit, so the receivers have broken off passes and they've broken off underneath. Yeah, he's very efficient, as you've said. And not a lot of turnovers.
Also, although he's battling injuries, do you feel like Kurtis Drummond has made strides these past couple weeks? It seems like he sort of took his game to another level before getting hurt.
Yeah, Kurtis has played well this year for a guy who's a redshirt sophomore. He's had some very big plays for us this year defensively. From a consistent standpoint, he needs to stay healthy. He needs to continue to grow as a player. But he's got an invaluable experience this year as a redshirt freshman. Last year, he was sort of our nickel guy for a while, so that's been a positive as well for him. So I think he's prepared to take his game farther and farther, and to the next level as he goes. But he's had big plays for us, and I can remember the Ohio State game and the game against Nebraska. He's a good football player.
Mark, each group handles senior day a little bit differently. How do you expect this group to handle the emotions of playing their last game in Spartan Stadium?
Well, hopefully very well. I think that one of the toughest things I think as a senior is if you come out flat your senior year and your last game, if you come out flat. Everybody needs to get themselves ready to go. You can't be too saddened by the experience that you're not ready to play. I think it's an opportunity to showcase your talents one more time in Spartan Stadium, in front of your family and in front of your home crowd and your friends. So our guys will be ready to play. No question.
Mark, you faced Fitz as a player, an assistant coach, and now a head coach. What's the signature or the trademark of his teams, and will you commiserate with him a little bit before the game since you've both been so close on the wrong side of the game of inches?
Commiserate. No, I won't commiserate. We're going to look forward. But, I think the trademark of Pat's teams are that they play with a great amount of toughness and effort, and they're always moving forward. They're always playing for the next play. They're very positive in terms of how they play. And, they play with effort and toughness, like I said before, which is a trademark that we've tried to, well, I think we have shown here. But I have a lot of respect for how they play and what they've been able to accomplish.
Prior to your arrival, as you know, Michigan State did not make Detroit a priority. When you came, you did. Chris was one of those early guys out of Detroit, had a lot of offers, could have went a lot of places, but he bought into you, specifically talked about that. I know that you're close with all your players, but is there something special about guys early who buy in before others had something tangible to see?
Yeah, he was one of the first that class, really, that 09 class, had a lot of great players that were really national recruits from the state of Michigan in that class. Larry Caper was the same. Edwin Baker, who was in that class, Andrew Maxwell, a lot of guys, and I could probably go on. But Chris Norman, as I remember, we had the one evaluation in the spring. I was in Renaissance High School and talked to their coach, and later on that day, he called me and said he wanted to commit right at that point in time. And, I asked him if he was sure, and he was sure, and he never wavered on that throughout the entire process. And he came here, was an immediate player for us in 2009, I remember starting him against Notre Dame that year because I wanted him to have that experience, because I knew he was going to be a great player for us. More than anything, though, you see Chris Norman grow as a person. You know, when I think of leaders, I always think of, you know, when you become a leader, you really are becoming a servant. And I think that he has done that. He has given of himself. He has put others in front of him, really throughout the entire process. And he's a quiet, unassuming guy, and he's had to take the role of a little bit more of a vocal guy this year. And even though that might not always be his personality, he's done a great job with that, embracing that and stepping forward in that responsibility a little bit. But you know, always remember Chris, outstanding person. He will be a difference maker in society, whether that be in Detroit or whether that be anywhere he decides to live. He'll be a difference maker. He'll make an impact on people.
Just following up on that senior theme, are Friday nights kind of special with you? Visit them longer, or do you share anything you can share with us on what Friday nights before their final game is for the seniors?
Yeah, Friday nights we always have we have meetings, and I've always really this year and last year we've had a senior or one of our leaders basically talk to our football team and, you know, have a little presentation on whatever they wanted to have it on. We call it a traveler's gift, you know, one of the travelers team's gifts to our team. On this Friday night, we'll sort of have a video that sort of encompasses all of our seniors in terms of and them talking on that video to our football team. So it'll be an emotional experience. It always is. I think what we've learned, though, is to try and have that emotional experience on the day before the game and not on the game, because that emotional experience on the day of the game can sometimes sort of linger for us. So we need to get that out of the way and get on to business a little bit. But I think it's something that they can look back on, and it's their way of sort of touching our football team on their last home game. Then obviously on their last game too, it'll be a little bit special, and that'll be done at the Bowl.
Mark, with only 2 games left, will you try to make an effort or a concerted effort to get some of the backups in the games that haven't played much this year?
We're playing to win, and anything that helps us win will be in there, and anything that doesn't help us win won't be in there. So, playing to win.
Mark, last year during senior day, the student section especially was kind of a little smaller than normal. Is that something you guys are preparing for, maybe seeing a bit emptier stadium this week, or is there something that maybe you'd want to say to the students to try and get them to come out more?
You know, I prepare our football team. You know, I'm not preparing our student body. Prepare our football team. So our players will be out there playing, and we're going to play to the people that are here. I'm not concerned about who doesn't show. I'm concerned about who does show, and when they show up, that they bring their A game, whether that's a fan or whether that's a player, or whether that's a coach. And that's all I can concern myself with. There's a lot going on in America. There's a lot going on in society. You know, people have very busy lives. I understand that. So I'm appreciative of the support that we get, and I'm concerned. I concern myself with that aspect of society, not the aspect that doesn't show.